know that every day when I'm breathing, it's for us to go farther. You know, every time I speak, I want the truth to come out. You know what I'm saying? Every time I speak, I want to shiver. You know, I don't want them to be like, they know what I'm going to say because it's polite. They know what I'm going to say. And even if I get in trouble, you know what I'm saying? Ain't that what we're supposed to do? I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world. But I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us. We might not be the ones, but let's not be selfish, and because we're not going to change the world, let's not talk about how we should change it. I don't know how to change it, but I know if I keep talking about how dirty it is out here, somebody going to clean it up.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.
It happened again. This is the second time that I've started the podcast and my audio has been muted. And thank God I looked up. Some of you are like, what's going on here? How come there's no audio? And I do apologize for that. I don't know why it does that. And it only does it when I do the podcast, which is weird. But I can see the bar right now. I know that you can hear me, so that's good. Again, I want to welcome you to the podcast. If this is your first time here, please do me the honor of subscribing, hit the notification bell, sharing this space. It's funny because I feel like this is a continuation of the week. The week as I talk about financial literacy, I have family talk time, I talk about technology, and we come to this space, and this space here is usually, it's more malleable, it's more pliable, because it could be where I am literally saying, okay, hey, I'm going to have a guest on here, or I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to talk and share with you what's going through my mind and address particular topics. And as I'm sitting here right now, I want to welcome all of you who are on, who are joining me through YouTube. Those of you who join me through Facebook, I really appreciate it. Those who are on the few who are on Twitch and Periscope. For whatever reason, I have a lot of people on Periscope who stop by and see this content. So I do appreciate you, and I hope that I'm serving you well with information, or maybe just simply entertainment. And then the other thing too, as I'm sitting here right now, I'm just doing it right now because I am super late today, this evening, because I was caught up doing a bunch of other things. Let me see if I can do this right here as I'm talking to you. I'm gonna add a topic real quick. I also like to broadcast into Clubhouse. I don't have a following in Clubhouse, but you know what? I really believe that if you build it, they will come. Remember the movie Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner? If you build it, they will come. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up the principal. I'm doing it right now. I know this is so unprofessional as well. I don't even know I don't even know the name of my own show, the Sneaker Principal Podcast. Podcast. I'm a principal and I cannot spell. I just got to add in here recording, because I got to make sure that I'm respecting the privacy of those on Clubhouse, the Clubhouse space. Recording live. Hopefully there's enough letters for that. So the Sneaker Principal Podcast, recording live, set topic, and I'm just going to go ahead and let's go. And there is a room in here. Yes, here we go. So those of you who are familiar with with Clubhouse, you know, I love Clubhouse. Every morning I'm on there with the Millionaires Breakfast Club. Awesome, inspirational, motivational. And I just figured I would just always pump in there live, because you never know who might stop by to listen. I just wanted to make sure that I'm creating as much space for people to engage in the content that I'm creating. So again, I appreciate all of you for this. So this evening, again, as usual, I'm not a pre-planner unless I have a guest on there. But I do think about what I'm going to talk about throughout the week, you know. And what ends up happening is the thing that I choose in my mind I want to talk about never quite happens unless it's a pre-scheduled interview or conversation. So this afternoon actually, my wife was like, you know, I had to go drop off some sneakers that I sold, and I went to UPS. Then my wife was like, hey, can you stop by this amazing, those of you who are in New York City, in New Rochelle, there's a spot, and listen, they're not sponsoring this video, but there's a Rasta spot, 100% vegan, called Jolo's Kitchen. It's right on North. I don't know, I don't remember the name of the cross street, but if you type in Jolo, Jolo's Kitchen in New Rochelle, it is amazing. And you go there to eat, and literally, what's on the menu? They'll tell you, oh, this is barbecue chicken, or this is spicy beef. But it's all literally vegetables. The spicy beef is mushroom that just makes you just go crazy. But you're like, how is this so good? The barbecue chicken, I was like, why does this taste like chicken? But my wife and I have decided to really move into a space of just being much healthier. And me, myself, those of you who've known me from my past, I'm telling you, those of you who really know me, know that at one point in time, I was like 325 pounds. And I was sick and dying. You know, my doctor told me, you know, I remember one time I went to the doctor because I was having all these migraines. And he told me, first of all, when I got there, my blood pressure was so high that the nurse wouldn't even tell me what. You know how they come in there to check your blood pressure? They're like, oh, it's a little high. It's this over this. She just checked it, and she said, oh my, and she left. And it was one of those days I was not having a good day. It was a long day. It was after work, and I was just like, I'm not in the mood right now. I just need to see the doctor so I can go home. Then she came back again. She's like, I just need to check it one more time. She checked it. And I'm one of those people, I tend to stay calm and just be like, okay, woosah. But this was not a woosah day for me. I was just kind of like, okay, what's good? What's happening? And the doctor walked in, and my doctor at the time is a Nigerian doctor. He walked in, he was like, Mr. Njoku, how are you doing? I am looking at your charts, and your blood pressure is a little concerning. I'm looking at this dude like, for real? Like, he's like, how did you get here? And I'm like, I drove, like I was driving here. And he was like, you know, and at this point I was done. I just didn't want to be there. And he's telling me that that he couldn't release me. I had to sign paperwork to be released. And I was like, but why? He's like, because your blood pressure is so high right now. He's like, I don't even know how you even got here. But you shouldn't be able to walk. You shouldn't be able to talk. You shouldn't be functioning right now. And honestly, at this levels, you should be passed out. I was having my migraines. I've had one of those days, and I was not feeling it. I just was not feeling him right then. And he made me sign some paperwork before he could release me, because he said to me, at the levels you are right now, you should be going, but he had an office, a clinic office. He was like, we should be sending you to the emergency room. I was like, where's the paperwork? I signed that and I bounced. I dipped. I left. And I got home and I didn't feel good, but eventually I went to sleep. This next day I continued my business. And it stuck with me in my head about just him saying, like, I don't know how you got here. And I think a couple of weeks later I was in a car accident. And because of the car accident, I had to go see a doctor, and that doctor said the same thing. And it was a doctor who was not my personal doctor. He said to me, like, dude, your blood pressure is like insane. And then he told me that, and at the same time, I maybe it was just my overall demeanor. You know, I was like dismissive, like, listen, dude, just tell me what I need to do right now. But my back is killing me from this car accident. And he told me, he just looked at me and says, you know what, Mr. Njoku, do you want to die? Are you trying to die? He said to me, and I was looking at him like, what are you talking about? He's like, because you're not taking me seriously. You're this right now where you are, you will die. And eventually, it took me some time, but eventually, after another 2 or 3 years, I made the right moves and right choices to get myself healthy, and I also got weight loss surgery, because that was my only real option at the time. I was just way too big, and nothing I did, and I was also in a state of emergency as far as my blood pressure was concerned. But since then, and I digress, I went a completely different direction in this conversation. But my wife met me post surgery, and and I've been in this space where I'm always consistently, even sometimes I might veer off the road, and my weight fluctuates. Like right now, my walking weight should be roughly about 190, 200. But the pandemic has pushed me into like the 220s, and I'm back now down to 215. And a lot of it had to do with just the activity and the food. And I think there's been a lot of stress eating during the pandemic. And so now I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian. I'm not going to admit to that. But I have cut out meat for the past couple of weeks now, and my wife has been doing an incredible job cooking non-meat based foods. I'm not doing eggs, any of that. Even though eggs are not meat, but I'm just kind of like saying, okay, I need to eat for fuel, and she's doing an incredible job just doing research and figuring out what's good. And some of you might be like, yo, so your wife does all the cooking. I can cook too. It's just that in the shared responsibility, she's taking it upon herself to really make sure that I'm eating well, and I really appreciate her for that. I love you, Rhea. And so back to being at Jolo's Kitchen. I went to Jolo's Kitchen, and I was over there, and I engaged in a conversation. It's a great place to run to people and have conversations. And I engaged in a conversation about entrepreneurship and children. And what I'm going to say here is not to be a slight on any race or anything like that, but this was just the truth of the conversation. In the conversation I was having, the question was put out there: why is it that when people of color, Black people specifically, start businesses, that you rarely see their children take the business over? Because, and what was said to me was that because often with Asians, that's the case. The business is never allowed to die. It just continually grows, and it becomes something bigger because the family is involved in it in some capacity. But often with Black families, that's not the case. And when I heard that, I was like, damn. Because my mother's an entrepreneur, and she shared these sentiments with me over the years, she's never said, how come you guys are not interested in the business? Because I worked in the business as a kid, when I was in high school. All my siblings in some capacity worked in the business, as far as opening the store, cleaning, and all that packaging stuff. But she owns an African food store in Los Angeles at one point in time. She sold that, and now she owns the largest African food store in Las Vegas. And she did an incredible job. All of her children are all professionals. We're all successful. It's funny because we're all in either education or in nursing. Myself, my brother, and one of my sisters are educators, and my two other sisters are nurses. So we're in career fields that are respectable. We're independent, and my mother's proud of us for what we've accomplished. But at the same time, her business had the potential of not existing after she decides to not continue with it, and because we're not part of it. And that conversation I had made me think, like, okay, because those of you who are familiar with me in the past couple of weeks, maybe even months, I've kept on bringing things back to financial literacy, how that's important. And I thought to myself, wow, that's a problem. And what was said to me in the midst of this conversation was, that society literally are pulling our children away from the space of building wealth within the family, especially through entrepreneurialism. And I thought to myself, like, wow, that is crazy. Because it's bad enough that we don't have financial literacy, that often in our communities, a lot of the businesses do not belong to us, or we don't even set up our own businesses, or we tend to be more consumers than we are, creators of products and services. And then when something like that is created, how do you maintain it for the long haul? And it's funny because when I think about I always try to think about back in the day, time long ago, what were things like, and the basis of my understanding of those things, my understanding of yesteryear, is my culture as Nigerian, being Igbo, and also the Bible. So being Igbo, Igbo culture, often back in the day, you were what your father was. If your father was a farmer, you were a farmer. If your father was a successful farmer, then you were obligated to take that and build it and make it even more successful. If your father was a palm wine tapper and was tapping palm wine, then you were as well. But generationally, your job was to grow that. My great great grandfather was a yam farmer. His son was a yam farmer. Then his son was a yam farmer, and then my father was the first to go get a westernized education, and I'm a descendant of that. So I know nothing about the farm. Even though there is acres and acres and acres of land back in Nigeria that belongs to my family, I know nothing about that because Western education has prepared me to serve within Western society. And it's interesting because when I think about that, all the resources and all the potential that exists in that land, I have no real connection to. Because I'm 45 years old now, I'm a school principal, I'm very well educated, I have a bachelor's degree, I have 2 master's degrees, I have Ivy League masters from Columbia. But what does that say, what does that mean to the land? That's my heritage. And are yams even be still being grown there? Because I would say no, because most of my aunts and uncles now are all in these spaces of more westernized work. And it's interesting because in the Bible, we know Jesus was a carpenter, and there's a good chance that Joseph, his father, was a carpenter too. Was probably a master carpenter to make sure his son was worth being mentioned in a historical context as a carpenter. Peter was a fisherman. There's a very good chance his father was a fisherman. And even though there's no talk about his father, if you look at other stories, like you see the line between the wealth of Abraham to Isaac to even Ishmael, then to Esau and Jacob. From Jacob, even Jacob, don't forget, was very wealthy. And it tells you the story of how he went to, I think, Laman's house, or I think it was Laman, I might be wrong about that, and built the wealth, and he did the weird white paint and black paint, whatever, on the goats, and he had the herds and everything else, and he even sent some of his wealth to Esau to beg forgiveness because of what had happened when he stole his birthright. And then Joseph, when Joseph was thrown into imprisonment in Egypt, he was so capable of handling business affairs and all these different things, and he was so well respected for his acumen. Where did he learn that? It had to be in his father's house, because his father was an astute businessman. So when he was in I forget the man's name, the man's house, the man's name whose house he was in, and his wife tried to seduce him and all that stuff, and when he went to jail, like all those spaces, he showed a certain level of business acumen because of what he learned from his father. So these spaces where we teach our children and we build family wealth as a collective has been broken. And those few people out there who are building business from the ground up, what are we doing to ensure that our children are staying in those spaces? And for those of us who don't have businesses, is it impossible to start something now? Even if it's just for kicks and giggles with your child, and saying, hey, let's open that lemonade stand and let's have a little small business here. Let's flip sneakers together and let's see what that's like, and develop those business skills and with your child. It doesn't have to be something that has already been established, but these things are very, very important because, again, it's funny. I was listening to these brothers, Rashawn and Troy, on Earn Your Leisure. Amazing brothers, and educators as well. I was watching one of their videos, and something that I just lost my train of thought. Something they said, it's going to come back to me. What did they say? Isn't that funny how you're thinking about something and obviously your brain goes left, and you're like, wait a minute, I forgot what I was trying to say. They were talking about oh wow, I totally forgot. But I'll go back to my train of thought. So the whole notion of building something together is very, very important. But that generational wealth is essential. And for that to work, there has to be there has to be a space for that to happen in the household. And I'll tell you this, as I'm thinking of my children, my two children, like I talk about them all the time. You know, my daughter is 2 years old, but my son is 11. 11 months, I'll say 11 months. Soon to be a year old in a couple of days. In my brain, I'm thinking to myself, what is it I'm preparing for them? Because I can't pass on to my son and daughter being a principal. I can't pass that on. Okay, I can't pass on to them being a teacher. I can't pass on to them to school because I work for the system. What am I establishing that I can actually give to them? What is it that I'm doing that I can build with them? I can teach them, and then they can take and build from that. Because it's okay to be a professional. It's okay to be a doctor, a lawyer, and everything else. But what is the work that's going to be the foundation of building the wealth that's going to move from generation to generation? Even as a doctor, unless you build a hospital and all your children become doctors, or some capacity of training in that field, it's doable, but it's a task. But I think it's very possible to build a space within your family construct to say, this is the things that we're doing right now to build wealth. I'm learning how to. I'm getting deeper into investing in the stock market, and I'm learning and actually trading options now, and I shared in one of my videos, my financial leadership videos, how it's been crazy. I just completed my first 7 days, and my portfolio, as far as profits are concerned, first 7 days, $497. It's been stressful. You know, it's been super stressful. And my first trade, I lost 95. I stupidly lost $95. And I think I was just like, I was so heartbroken. I was upset for like 2 days. Like, I lost $95. You know, because I'm so not a gambler. Like, I would go, like, my mom lives in Vegas, and I lived in Vegas for a while. And in Vegas, I would go to a slot machine and I'll play pennies. I would take $20 and I would max out that $20 till, you know, and after I play that $20, I'm upset because I was like, damn, I got nothing for paying that $20. Even though I was entertained for an hour. Yes, I can make $20 last for an hour in the casino. But so that's not my DNA. My DNA is not to just gamble money away. So that $95 I lost option trading this week. Actually it was in the first 4 days. I lost $95, but I made up for it with some other decisions that I made, options trading. And at the end of the week, I was up $997. So why do I say that? I am actually committing to learning the stock market, learning options trading, God willing, learning futures trading, because that's going to be my gift to my children. Not the stocks that I buy for them, not the custodial account that I've set up for them, but my gift to them is as soon as they're old enough. That's why I got to stay healthy and eat and stay lean and mean, because I cannot wait for the moment to sit with my son and daughter and say, let's sit down here and let me show you a custodial account. Here are all the stocks that are in there. Okay. This is what it means. This is how it plays out. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing for you. And this is how much you're going to have by the time you're 18, 21, you know. But also I want to sit down with them and say, let me show you how to option trade, how to buy and sell a put, you know, how to buy and sell a call. How does this all work? How to read charts, you know. Somebody might say, maybe they might be too young. Listen, if I'm graphing in the 4th and 5th grade, I can read a chart. Because all you got to let me know what's in the legends, what's on the y-axis, what's on the x and y-axis. You know, these are things we learn in school, but we're not taught how to read charts in school, in the stock market. You know, but it's okay though, because I feel like I'm gonna get fired one of these days because I feel like I'm constantly saying schools are not teaching us anything, and I'm a principal in the school. But I mean, as far as not teaching anything, as far as financial literacy is concerned. And again, for those of you who don't know, I've taken it upon myself in my school to implement financial literacy in my school, and I'm actually teaching the course this semester. I had another teacher teach it last semester. This semester, I'm actually teaching financial literacy to a bunch of 10th and 11th graders. And my goal is to have this be a program that runs all 4 years, even if it's just for a month or two, or maybe it's a summer, whatever it is. But I want every child in my school, by the time they graduate, to have an understanding of the financial markets and all the products. If it's real estate, whether it's stocks, it's bonds, options trading, insurance, all those spaces, they need to know these things. And but I'm saying all this because in my brain, that's what I'm thinking for my children, because I'm like, right now, I don't have a business to give to them. You know, I can keep flipping sneakers and be like, hey, let me show you how to flip a sneaker. But that was more of a hobby that turned into a side hustle, and it's cool, but it's not sustainable, because for all we know, in the future, maybe we won't have shoes. Maybe we have, I don't know, some kind of, you know, chemical component we put in our legs and our feet are sealed. I don't know. But right now, you know, I want to make sure that there's a skill set that no matter what happens in their lives, they're able to build upon. And my brother's saying the same thing for his daughter. And maybe possibly, you know, I'll put it into the universe, maybe there is an Njoku Capital LLC where we're, you know, investing and trading and doing these things. But the thing is this, it's very important that we are building businesses, no matter how small. If you braid hair, listen, it's funny, because I say if you braid hair, teach your kids how to braid hair too. Don't look down on small things, or small beginnings, and say, well, I had to do it so my child doesn't have to do this. You know, I had to run this restaurant that was backbreaking so my child didn't have to do that. But guess what? That restaurant, that braiding hair, that salon, you control that. You are part of the economy. But as a worker, you could be fired. As a worker, you know, you could be downsized. You know, as a worker, the business that you work for could be shut down. So we need to make sure that we are also creating spaces for our children to thrive in as well, outside of the Western, you know, paradigm of what earning money is. You know, so it's a thing that's been bubbling in my brain since this conversation I had this afternoon, and I'm over here trying to remember what I heard the brothers from Earn Your Leisure say in a video that I watched recently. Man, it's going to bug me that I don't remember, but nonetheless, I mean that's the space that I'm in this evening, and this is going to be a very short episode because I can just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. I don't think that's a good play of things. And the chat is pretty quiet right now, so which is good and bad, but it's not bad. It's good, you know, because I see that there are people on here on YouTube, and I see people that are on here on other mediums and different platforms. And I want to thank you so much for being here and listening. But I also want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to really think about, if you own a business, how are you putting your kids into it? Listen, education is very important. College is very important. All these things are very important. But it's very important that your child sees what they play in that space, you know, in that work. If you're a barber, why not make sure that your son or your daughter knows how to cut hair too? You know, it doesn't mean that that's what they have to do, but that can be the beginnings of a business. It could be the beginning of multiple barbershops, that they can still be a doctor or lawyer and have this enterprise and business be something that feeds into the future of the family. These are things, like, again, these are things that are built into our DNA as Black people. We are entrepreneurs. You know, my family is a family of entrepreneurs, because you know why I say we're entrepreneurs? Because what's the earliest form of currency, at least in Africa, that's documented, is bartering. I have this shiny yellow metal. I'm going to trade this for your fish, or I'm going to trade my cowrie shells for that. That notion of trading back and forth is entrepreneurship. Now we trade time and money, but that's not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is being able to sit down and negotiate, and where both parties benefit. These are the things that are very, very important, and we need to make sure that we're instilling in the future generation. I'm going to say it again. Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, was amazing and was scary for those who wanted to see it vanish, because the people who lived in that community all were part of a entrepreneurial circle. You know, the doctor serviced the people in the community, the funeral home, the barbershop, the I don't know, the different businesses, and the dentists, all these people in these spaces were all entrepreneurs, and they were trading money, trading services, and all these different things. And a lot of times back in the day, you because college and things like that were not that big of an option, so you learn from your parents or you learn from people in the community a trade, and then often you took it over, or you you added onto it. These are the things that we're missing today, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to close out for this evening because it's Black History Month, and we're one more day left before this month is over. Dr. King was assassinated after he shifted. Not shifted. He didn't. No. He pivoted a little bit to include some other people in the movement. One of his last great speeches, he talked about the three evils of the world. He talked about racism. Okay. Then he talked about war. But number two, the second thing he talked about poverty. And that's why he started talking about the poor people's movement, pulling in black folk, brown folk from all walks of life, including white folk. If you were disenfranchised and you were not being serviced as part of or seen as being part of great society, then, and because of your financial status, that was something that had to be resolved as well. And I really believe because that financial wealth and talk about money changed the paradigm of the movement. And you can have that. It's one thing when you had, black folk fighting to vote and fighting for equality. But when you get poor white folk to be part of that conversation too, maybe they're not fighting for racial equality, but they're fighting for financial equality, then guess what happens? The population of people who are fighting for the same thing quadruples. Because there is still way more poor white folk than there are wealthy white folk. If you add them to part of the struggle, guess what happens? Those who have become the true minorities. So I say this to say that that's why it's very important that we are building our financial acumen, that we're making sure that our kids are set up, but not just physically set up, but they're mentally set up, because we're engaging, we're teaching. If we don't have the language to teach it, then we better find somebody. Okay, if go to your church, ask the pastor, could we have financial literacy? Could we bring somebody in here? Who owns that business? Come and teach our kids, come teach us. These are the things we should be doing, because at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I don't care how much equality you have, how much equity you have. If you don't have financial freedom, it don't mean nothing. It doesn't. Because if you can't feed yourself, then guess what? Equality, equity takes a very, 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 very different meaning to your existence. Because you gotta eat first. That's why you gotta learn how to fish. Because if you know how to fish, you can make your own money, you can develop your own, space of wealth. Then guess what now? When you're fighting for those other things, you have a solid foundation from which to fight for them. Because fighting for freedom costs money. And maybe that's why we're still fighting for it, because we don't have it. We don't have enough money. Or if we do have enough money, it's not being channeled in the right spaces. All right, guys. I feel like I'm always making people feel bad or overextending my personal opinions, but this is my truth. This is Sneaker Principle Podcast, and it's Uche and Njoku, and this is what I believe, and this is what I'm sticking to, and that's pretty much it. Thank you so much again for being here this evening, and it's been a long day, and I have a whole bunch of work to do, so I'm going to say adieu. I'm going to bid you adieu and good night. Kachifo, as we say in Igbo land, Kachifo, and I'll see you guys next time, all right? Be well. Peace. It doesn't want to end. Try one more time.
And now he's been promoted.